Op 4, last operator standing.
There's nothing quite like borrowing your ammo capacity from Lord Tachanka. But what is up there, everyone? It's the guy from the Gaming Tag here, and today I want to sort of do a retrospective view on Rainbow Six Siege over the last year, how I've kind of been playing and developing as a player. Because I have spent a lot of time away from this game, mostly just down to my time at university, but I wanted to sort of explain how I personally play as a player and what I've been trying to do to develop my own play style. Because although I haven't been playing it that much, I do still get really into it when I do go back to it, because it is such a deep and interesting game. Now, one of the main things is the operators I choose to play. I mostly do stick to the base game operators because they're the ones I'm comfortable with. I don't necessarily main any particular characters, however there are some that I go back to as default characters because I do just seem to get on well with them. Rook is my main one. If I don't know who to play on defense, I almost always go and play Rook because they're the one character that I can almost always contribute something. All I've got to do is press one button and I've contributed to the round, so that's always a benefit for me because I've instantly put armor down for my teammates and they can use it and they have extra health for the rest of the round, and I actually feel like I've contributed something regardless of whether I actually get any kills. I would also usually find myself going for someone like Bandit because I find that Bandit is quite a useful character and is quite good for roaming or just perhaps staying close to the objective just to ambush enemies. But at the same time, I don't feel like I've made a critical error if I get picked off early in the match. I would feel that way if I was using Jaeger because he has a very powerful weapon, but with someone like Bandit I can put my utility down at the beginning of the round, which contributes throughout the round. So I feel like I'm more beneficial to the team playing Bandit because I'm not particularly a confident roamer, because I personally prefer to anchor the objective or stay reasonably close to it because I just haven't quite developed the technique of roaming yet. I've tried to and I haven't as yet had much success. It's mostly that I just don't time it right. I'll try and roam because I see the enemies are coming from one direction, but I get halfway to making my epic flank and then the enemies are in the objective already and I've basically just completely mistimed it and misread the scenario. I think my main problem is that I stay on the objective during the entire preparation phase and at the beginning of the match, so then when I try and flank I'm always out of position. I have to go all the way across the map to actually get the flank to work, and that takes way too much time. I probably need to actually move into another location. I probably need to set myself up to be able to roam to be able to actually be a more successful roamer. The reason I haven't done that is because I am so out of practice with the game. I don't really know how to read other players yet, because I'm slightly tentative about where I should hide on some maps when the round starts, because I don't know where enemies are going to want to breach, where enemies are going to be most likely to enter into the buildings, because I'm just so out of practice with the game. It also doesn't help that I'm mostly playing casual because I'm so out of practice, but it means that I also have no idea where the enemies are going to be spawning, so it makes it that bit more difficult to get myself into a good position at the start of the round. But because I prefer anchoring, I have actually found myself really enjoying playing as Echo. It's mostly just the fact that I can anchor on the objective and also watch my back at the same time. That's another reason why I've enjoyed playing Mirror, but I personally stick more with Echo because I find I gel more with him and his weapon. I don't know what it is, but I seem to get on quite well with this operator. And through playing him, especially on the new tower map, I found myself starting to think more about trying to find hard cover and actually making it so the enemies are a lot harder to get me. Because the difference between hard cover and soft cover is anything you can shoot through, so that's most of the walls in this game. And hard cover is something that cannot be shot through at all. So I usually run with the deployable shield on Echo, just because that way I can block off one line of sight onto me and then I can use the hard cover to cover my back. But then it also gives me a hiding spot, so when I'm on my yokai drone and actually just trying to work out where the enemies are, where they're attacking from, it then allows me to stay safe whilst I'm vulnerable in the drone, because I can still see where the enemies are coming from. As long as I place the drone correctly, I can still see where the enemies are coming from, and I find that really useful information. I don't know whether perhaps could have contributed more as another operator, but I just personally feel more comfortable. Now, I did actually for a while try and start playing the other DLC operator, so I started trying to play Valkyrie. I learnt some camera spots on Cafe Dostoevsky, but other than that, I'm not very comfortable with the Valkyrie. It's mostly that I don't know the best places to put cameras. I'm not very confident with roaming as well and making aggressive pushes out of windows and stuff like that, so I'm not really suited to Valkyrie at the moment because I don't really have much confidence in my own playing ability to be able to play Valkyrie properly and actually be a really effective Valkyrie. I've pretty much stayed away from Caveira most of the time. I am just utterly terrible because, as I've said, I'm not a good roamer. I'm pretty potato at the best of times. I did manage to get this. This was the most potato clutch I've ever had, but I will take it because it's one of the only clutches I've ever had, because I'm a big noob, and unfortunately I choose the internet as my place to show that I'm a big noob. But I would like to be good at that Cav, because she's utterly terrifying when you are actually good at it, but unfortunately that's going to take a long time before I'm good at Cav. I have also found that I can be sometimes quite effective with Frost. Frost is an operator I get on with quite well, mostly because her weapon is very low recoil, and also her gadget is quite useful in that it's mostly, if you can place it in obscure places, it's usually the most effective. And I think part of the reason I like using Frost is I like playing the thinking game. It's like, okay, where would someone be not likely to look for this? And that way I can hopefully trap them. And it's just quite fun. And actually, one operator I found myself liking quite a lot is Lesion. Now, I find with Lesion, I think the main reason I like him is just his weapon. I get on really well with it. It's got a bit of recoil, but it's pretty easy to control. And then also his gadget, the goo mines, because they let you know exactly which one has been set off. You know where the enemies are coming from. I do really enjoy using this operator. I just need to perhaps get a bit better at using him. I mostly will try and roam around the objective, so not necessarily roaming across the map, but I'll be in the next room, say, from the objective, and I'll try and pick off one or two people, set a goo mine or two down as I retreat, and then head into the objective, and then place them at the entranceways to that objective. That way I can track where the enemies are coming from, and if they were following me, I know how close they are behind me. I don't know if that's the best way to play Lesion, or whether it's just play it to your situation. That's the thing, is there's no one good way to really play Rainbow Six Siege. You just have to play your situation right, and that's one of the most challenging and also most interesting parts of the game. So as much as I would like to ask for advice, people can only sort of be general, because unless they wanted to really go in depth and say, look, you have to use this strategy on every map, it is unlikely to work that way. So I have enjoyed using Lesion. I've surprisingly, apart from that one triple spray, which was absolutely hilarious because our team was getting destroyed that game, and then randomly I get a triple out of nowhere, I haven't had much use of Ella. I don't know, I just don't really play Ella. I think it's just because with her gadget specifically, you need to know exactly where to push it, or you need to be willing to roam and play really aggressively, and I'm just not really an aggressive defender, so I don't really suit that role, so I haven't really played Ella that much. And then recently we also got Vigil. I haven't really used Vigil that much either. It's mostly just because when I did last play, it was just after the new season started, so a lot of people were trying to play Vigil. It's mostly, again, he can be quite useful for roaming. I'm not much of a roaming character. However, he's also quite a good anchor because people won't necessarily know where he is. But I just need to get some more game time with that character to decide whether I can play him right or whether I feel comfortable with him as a character. When it comes to attacking, I don't really actually have any crutch characters either. It's not like defense where I have a certain few that I go back to every time. It's usually more random. It's like, okay, I'll use this particular character on this map. I don't really have a set role that I choose to play, which I think is probably not a good... I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because if I had one role that I prefer to play, I'd be good at that role and I would know what I need to do each round, but at the same time I then maybe wouldn't have some flexibility. But at the same time, because I'm a bit of a low skilled player, it means that I don't really have a set thing I do every round, and I also don't have much adaptability either because I'm just not generally that good. But I do have a couple of characters that I'm more comfortable with. So I do still go back to IQ a lot, mostly because she's the only character I've ever had aces with, so I usually go to IQ just when I don't know who else to play. I do actually quite like using Jackal, mostly because his weapon is really low recoil. I do find his gadget to be not so useful for me. I never really catch the right person. I am that person who every time I scan someone with Jackal, I scan the person who's in the objective. I only ever find people in the objective. I never manage to catch any roamers, or very rarely I do. So I do like Jackal because of his low recoil. And I have also quite enjoyed Twitch and Thermite. The main reason for Twitch is just because her FAMAS is absolutely incredible. That is a really powerful weapon. If I ever have to play Recruit, I almost always go for the FAMAS just because it's such a strong weapon. And in Thermite, he's a character that I actually don't play very often, but every now and then I do go back to him and I remember how powerful his weapon is. He has a really good primary weapon, but also his gadget is just one of the most useful gadgets in the game. In terms of the DLC operators, I actually try to use Buck quite a lot, but I really shouldn't. It's like I like to use Buck because I think he's a cool operator, but the problem is I just can't control his weapon. The M16 is just one of the most difficult to control weapons in the game, and I really struggle with it. I've had to take off the ACOG scope because it was just too embarrassing watching me miss everything. But now I've got the problem that holographic doesn't quite have the zoom, so it's a lot more difficult to line up headshots for me. But I should probably just stick to Sledge. Sledge would be a much better choice for me because it is a much easier operator to use. But I've just got a soft spot for Buck just because his shotgun is just so cool. The Master Key shotgun is just awesome. And the other DLC operators I don't really stick to on offense. Like Blackbeard I don't really use, mostly because I don't really like 3 armor attackers. They're just very slow for me. So I don't really go for Blackbeard. And also I'm not really much of a window peeky person. It's just that I don't really like to rappel through windows. Mostly because I don't know why, I can't rappel upside down and look through windows. I just can't do that. It screws with my head so much. I just cannot do it. I don't know if there's any technique or way to practice that you get used to it, but I just struggle to do it. It's almost like I can't see. It's really weird. I just don't know how to do it. And there's also Capital. I just don't really play Capital. I very rarely do anything useful, and I almost never make any use of his gadget. Other than like the smoke bolts, I never do anything useful with the incendiary bolts. I think I've probably killed myself more times than I've killed enemies with them. I just can't play Capital. I did actually use Habana quite a lot during the Velvet Shell season, which was at the very beginning of 2017. I found her gadget very useful. She has a very good gadget, and her primary weapon is really good, along with the fact that she has the Bearing 9 as a secondary weapon, which is incredibly good, which made her a really good operator. But I just haven't used her recently. I haven't really had I should probably go back to her. I felt quite comfortable with her as an operator. I just, for some reason, haven't played as Habana for quite a while. And then year 2, I didn't really play that much, but I didn't really get on well with any of the operators bar Jackal. I didn't really get on with Ying. Ying I don't like. I cannot control her weapon. I do actually quite like Sophia. She is a very good operator, but I just don't use her that much. And then there's also Takebi, who's just come out in the most recent season. She's a good operator, but I don't really have the finesse to use either of her weapons. I'm not particularly proficient with automatic weapons, and so a DMR or a shotgun with slug rounds, it's just not going to be right for me. I'm not that proficient at the game to be good at Takebi, so I'm going to leave Takebi alone for a while. I might play her every now and then, but I'm not likely to pick her often, just because I'm not likely to do as well as if I use perhaps a different operator. I also found that when I did use Takebi, when I called the defenders' phones, it might have just been because I was too far away, but I've never actually heard the sound from when you're calling defenders' phones, so I don't actually know what to listen out for. So that's going to be quite an interesting thing when I do go back to playing Takebi, is learning actually what sounds I need to listen out for. I don't want to start turning up my headset too loud because I'm just going to get headaches if I turn it up too loud. So I just need to sort of perhaps learn how to pick out the right sounds, because at the end of the day, Rainbow Six Siege is all about gaining information, so I do need to learn how to get as much information as possible. But overall, I'm hoping to play a lot more in year 3. I do really love this game. It's really unique. It offers something that is like nothing else on the market at the moment. And really, I do enjoy this game. The main thing that holds me back is that I love it, but I suck at it. I really need to just get better at the game. If any of you do have any suggestions for gameplay tips, or perhaps you just want to know more about the game or just talk about it, feel free to leave that down in the comments below. But I do hope you enjoyed the video. This has been the guy from the Gamer Tag, and I'll see you on another video.
Operator remaining. Protect the bio container. Hostile activity